Sometimes the strongest people in the room are the ones silently fighting the battles that no one could see. Athletes today are celebrated to their physical abilities, their highlight reels, and the victories we watch from the stands or on the screen. But behind every performance, behind every sprint, jump, lift, or routine, there is a hidden world of emotional pressure that most people never witness. From high school sports to college programs to the professional level, athletes are expected to be mentally strong at all times. No excuses, no breaks, no signs of weakness. But here's the truth: athletic performance is deeply tied to the mental well being, and ignoring this connection can cause some serious harm. Me personally, I've spent many years playing sports and watching teams struggle in ways that were never talked about. I've seen people who looked confident on the field fall apart the moment they stepped off of it. I've seen athletes push themselves past exhaustion because they felt like they had to. These experiences, along with research from experts, taught me that mental health in athletics matters more than most people realize. And that's why I feel confident speaking about this topic today. Athletes struggle in silence. Supporting their mental health protects not only their performance, but their dreams, their confidence, and their long term well being. In this speech, I'll explain the intense pressure athletes face, discuss the consequences of ignoring mental health, and show how open conversation can reduce stigma and help athletes feel safe to ask for help. Let's begin by looking at what athletes experience long before they step into the competition. Athletes face immense pressure and public scrutiny, which can negatively affect their mental health. According to a 2024 Cleveland Clinic article, research shows that 5% to 35% of elite athletes report having a mental health disorder. And the numbers are even higher among college athletes. Think about that for a second. That's not just a small group. That's a huge portion of the athletic population struggling quietly. This statistic reveals a reality many people overlook. The pressure athletes carry is often invincible, but incredibly heavy. Now imagine this. A high school basketball player stands at the free throw line. The gym is packed, the score is tied, the noise of the sound crashes like waves against a rock. Every set of eyes staring, waiting, expecting perfection. Their heart pounds harder than the bounce of the ball. Their whole identity, their reputation, maybe even their future feels like it rests on this one shot. That pressure doesn't end when the game is over. It follows the athletes home, into the classroom, onto social media, and into their future goals. Feels like it rests on this one shot. And today, athletes face even more scrutiny with constant online comments, comparisons, and highlights that make them feel like they have to perform perfectly all the time. When we truly understand the weight athletes carry, it becomes clear that mental health support isn't optional, it's essential. Now that we've explored this pressure, let's look at what happens when it builds up without support. Ignoring mental health issues can burn to burnout, anxiety, depression, and decrease in performance. A 2025 research article on deconstructing stigma in athletes' mental health explains that when athletes ignore stress, pain, and emotional exhaustion, the results can be devastating. This includes severe burnout, chronic fatigue, and long-term emotional decline. Problems that don't disappear when the season ends. We see this in real life too. In 2022, 5 NCAA female athletes died by suicide, with overwhelming pressure and injuries being major contributing factors. These tragedies shook the sports world and forced people to confront a difficult truth. Pretending athletes are unbreakable doesn't keep them safe, it puts them at risk. I've seen this firsthand. I've watched teammates push through injuries because they didn't want to let the team down. I've seen players hide stress behind a smile because they feel like they weren't allowed to struggle. I've seen athletes quit the sport they love because the pressure became too much. These aren't just stories. They're reminders that without mental health, athletes can lose their passion, their confidence, and sometimes even their lives. Now that we understand the consequence of silence, let's explore the power of conversation. Promoting open conversation about mental health in sports helps reduce stigma and fosters a culture of empathy and support. A 2024 article published by Vibe Therapy explained that when coaches, teammates, and mental health professionals talk openly about how athletes feel, it lowers the fear of shame surrounding mental health struggles. The article highlights NBA star Kevin Love, who spoke openly about his panic attacks and anxiety. His honesty didn't make him weaker, it made him a leader. His words encourage athletes everywhere to admit that sometimes they need help too. We saw another powerful example during the 2020 Tokyo Olympics when Simone Biles, one of the greatest gymnasts in history, stepped back for several events to protect her mental health. Rather than pushing through at the cost of her safety, she chose honesty. And instead of making her look weak, her decision changed the global conversation about strength, on what strength truly means. When athletes see role models being open, it gives them permission to do the same. It tells them you don't have to suffer silently, you deserve support. This is the kind of culture athletes need, one built on empathy, honesty, and understanding. In this speech, I explained the pressure athletes face, the dangers of ignoring their mental health, and the importance of open conversation in creating a supportive environment. At the heart of all of this is one simple truth. Athletes struggle in silence, and supporting their mental health protects their dreams, their strength, and their well-being. So I encourage you to rethink about how you see athletes, not just as performers, but as human beings who carry emotions, challenges, and vulnerabilities just like anyone else. Check in on an athlete you know, start conversations, challenge the idea that mental toughness means staying quiet. Because when we create a world where athletes can speak openly about mental health, we don't just improve sports, we save lives. Let's be a part of that change. Thank you.